What kind of man marries a stranger on the same day he buries the woman he loved? That question burned in Koi Ransom's chest long before he ever heard it spoken. It followed him like a shadow as he stood over the grave he dug with his own hands. The sun stuck low and red behind the hills like it didn't want to rise for him anymore. The morning he buried Anna, his hands trembled even though they were used to ropes and rifles. He lowered her into the pit and covered her with dust until the last bit of her dress disappeared. Beside her lay the tiny shape of their son, Elijah, who never took a single breath. Koi didn't call the preacher or the women from town. He didn't want comfort. He wanted silence, the kind that follows a scream too big for the throat. Anna had survived sickness, raids, hunger, and storms, but childbirth stole what none of those could. By midday, he burned the cabin down, just like Anna had written on an old almanac page. Burn it all. Let no one sleep in what I died inside. Flames swallowed the roof, the porch, everything they built together. Koi stood back with dry eyes, as if grief had drained every tear before it started. Then he turned west with nothing but his horse and the weight of a life that no longer had a place to stand. 3 weeks later, he came to Hollow Bend, a tired town crouched low beside Snakewater Creek. The buildings leaned, the streets were quiet, and the preacher lived more inside a whiskey bottle than a church. Koi didn't speak much. He drank when he had a coin, slept in the loft of the livery, and worked when someone needed a strong back. Hollow Bend was a place people passed through, but something in its stillness held him. On the 4th day, the stagecoach rolled in. Dust rose behind it like a thin storm. A woman stepped down with no escort, no luggage besides one small trunk, and no expression. She wore a blue calico dress. Her hair was braided tight. Her eyes watched everything but gave nothing back. The driver said she was meant for a man named Harris or Harlan, he couldn't remember. She had come from Nebraska territory, but her story was as empty as her hands. No one stepped forward to claim her. She stood by the street like a lost parcel someone forgot to pick up. Folks whispered, crossed themselves, avoided her eyes. Hollow Bend was used to trouble, but not the kind that arrived wearing a wedding dress packed in a trunk. Koi sat outside the store with a jar of molasses between his boots. His beard was rough, his coat thin, his hat tired. He hadn't expected anything from this town or from life. Yet when her eyes met his, he felt something shift inside him, like ashes, lifting in a weak wind. He tipped his hat. She walked toward him slowly, as if testing the ground with each step. "Your man didn't come," Koi said. His voice surprised him. It sounded unused, cracked. "No," she answered. "Got a name?" "I do." She didn't offer it. Koi studied her face. She didn't look scared. She looked like someone who had walked through fire before and expected more of it. He said, "Don't reckon I've got much. No home, no land, no dollar to spare. But I know what it is to be left behind." "I wasn't left," she said. "I was sent." Koi blinked. That answer felt like a stone dropped in deep water. He didn't ask more. A man who has buried a wife learns not to dig where someone hides their ghosts. "My name's Koi Ransom," he said. "I buried my wife 3 weeks ago, burned the house, sold the cattle. I don't drink more than sorrow calls for, and I never raise a hand to what doesn't raise one to me." She studied him like she was measuring grain. "You asking?" "I'm saying." She nodded once. By nightfall they were married. No flowers, no music, no crowd. The preacher sobered long enough to mumble through vows. Koi held her hand. It felt cold, but steady. She finally said her name at the altar. "Mara." They ate cold biscuits and canned peaches in the loft of the livery. Fence posts shifted in the stall below them. Koi unrolled a blanket. Mara lay down beside him without speaking. He didn't ask her past. She didn't ask his sorrow. Hours before dawn, she turned to him and whispered, "I can't give you children." Koi looked at the rafters above them. "Then we won't plant any." "You should have picked someone easier," she said. "I didn't pick," he answered. "I answered." For the first time since Anna died, sleep took him. The days that followed were quiet. Mara woke early, washed at the pump, and kept to herself. She cleaned the corner of the loft, stitched Koi's torn coat, and cooked what little they had without being asked. But she never cried. Not once. People whispered behind their backs. Some said she ran from something. Others said she brought trouble. Koi didn't care. He had walked through worse storms than words. Then, everything changed on a Thursday evening. Koi returned from chopping wood to find the livery loft in chaos. The trap door hung open. A stock boy crawled away with blood dripping from his ear. Mara stood above him with a paring knife in her hand, her skirt torn, her eyes dark and steady. Koi didn't ask a thing. He dragged the boy into the street and told the crowd, "He won't walk right for a spell. Anyone wants more details, I'll carve him into your ribs." Silence dropped fast. In the loft, Mara sat still. The knife lay wiped clean beside her. Her hands trembled once before she steadied them. "He thought I was bought," she said. "You ain't," Koi answered. She looked at him, and the smallest crack appeared in her hard shell. Something like relief or fear, he couldn't tell. "Koi," she whispered, "I was promised to a man named Cray." Koi felt his chest tighten. "And you ran." "I survived." And in that moment, without speaking it, both of them knew something dark was coming. The truth came out slow, like a wound that didn't want air. Mara sat on the edge of the loft with her hands folded tight, and Koi waited without pressing. He had learned patience from grief. He knew some stories hurt more spoken aloud. "I was promised to a man named Cray," she said again. Her voice was low, steady, but her eyes flickered the way a candle does before going out. "My kin took his money. Said I owed them for living long enough to marry. They shipped me west like freight." Koi felt anger settle in his stomach like hot iron. Not the wild kind, not rage. Something heavier. What kind of man was he? Koi asked. "The kind who beat his first wife to death," Mara said. "They buried pigs over her so no one would ask questions." Koi clenched his jaw until his teeth hurt. He didn't ask how Mara learned that. He didn't need to. Some things carried their own truth. "I changed my ticket in Ogallala," she said. "Burned the letter. Got on another coach. Came here because it was the first stop where no one knew my name." "You did right," Koi said. She stared at her hands. "But he'll come. Men like him don't let go." Koi said nothing. He unwrapped a cloth he kept hidden in his saddlebag. Inside was a tin badge, dulled by age. "You were a sheriff," Mara said. "Not anymore," Koi answered. "Justice got heavy. Revenge got easy." She looked at him then, really looked. He couldn't read her expression, but it made something in him shift. "I won't be her again," she whispered. The girl waiting for a man to save her. "Then don't," Koi said. That night they moved out of the loft and into an abandoned surveyor's shack near the edge of town. It had no door and half a roof, but it was theirs. Koi patched the holes while Mara turned scraps into a home. Little by little, something like peace slipped into their days. But Hollow Bend was a place with ears. And Cray was a man with long hands. One evening, flames tore through a nearby shack. Koi rushed to help, rifle in hand. Inside the smoke, they found two bodies, the preacher and a burned woman no one could name. Mara stared longer than anyone else. "She was meant for Cray, too," Mara whispered. "He sends messages." The next morning, the stage rolled in. A tall man stepped down wearing a pale hat and a smile that didn't touch his eyes. A scar cut across his cheek like someone had tried to erase him and failed. "I'm looking for my bride," he said. Mara froze behind Koi. Koi stepped forward. "You found the wrong town." Cray's cold eyes slid over them both. "I'll know her when I see her." "She ain't for sale," Koi said. Cray smiled thin. "I'll be at the saloon, sundown." He walked away like he already owned her. Mara's breath trembled. "You're gonna kill him." Quote. "No," Koi said, watching Cray disappear into the dusty street. "We are." Cray didn't drink. He sat in the saloon the whole day, hands folded, eyes dead. A man who waited for violence like other men waited for supper. Mara didn't hide. She cleaned, braided her hair, sharpened a knife, and sat by the window with the sun at her back. She wasn't afraid. She was ready. When the light outside turned gold, Cray came out, a dueling pistol on his shoulder, another at his hip. He walked slow so the whole town could see him. He stopped in front of their shack. "You made your choice," he said. Koi stepped outside, rifle on his back. "We made it for you." "She's mine," Cray said. "I paid for her." "I'm not," Mara said from behind Koi. Cray's hand twitched. Mara moved first. Her knife flashed low, slicing across Cray's thigh. It staggered him. Koi moved forward, dropped to a knee, and fired. The bullet clipped Cray's shoulder, sent him spinning into the dirt. Mara kicked the pistol from his hand and planted her boot on his chest. "I know what you are," she said, "and I know what you've done." "I paid for you," Cray gasped. "You paid my brother," Mara said. "He spent it on whiskey." Cray looked up at her, eyes wide with hate and disbelief. "Then what are you?" She leaned close. "I'm the woman who buries the past," she said, "and you're 6 feet of it." But she didn't kill him. She stepped back. Cray crawled away, bleeding, the crowd watching in silence. By morning he was gone, dragged out of town in a wagon, broken but alive. After that day, Hollow Bend changed. Not loud, deep. People nodded at Mara in respect now. Women brought scraps of cloth for her sewing. Children watched her with awe and fear. Men lowered their voices when she passed. Koi carried his rifle again, but never touched his badge. Together, they built something small but solid. A little garden. A stronger shack. A life that made sense, even if it wasn't gentle. But peace in Hollow Bend never lasted. One night, Koi smelled smoke. Not from a home. A signal fire burned out by the ridge. At dawn, 5 riders came. 4 men. 1 woman. Hard faces, good horses. They stopped in front of the trading post. "We want the girl," the woman said. "You're harboring a fugitive." Koi didn't answer. Mara stepped forward. "You came from Cray." "We came for what belongs to him," the woman said. "He sends his regards." "Then let him come himself," Mara said. The woman laughed. "He doesn't come for scraps. We clean for him." The first shot broke the sign above the trading post. The second killed a rider. Then Hollow Bend fought. Koi fired from the feed store. Klima stabbed a man who charged the steps. The saloon barkeep shot through a window. Dust rose like a storm as bullets tore through wood and bone. Mara moved through the chaos like someone who had promised herself never to run again. Her knives found every soft place. She fought quiet and fast. When the smoke cleared, 5 bodies lay in the street. 1 rider fled. 1 crawled into a ditch and died before sundown. Mrs. Greevy whispered, "Will more come?" "Yes," Mara said. Koi lifted his rifle. "Then we'll be ready." The town began to prepare. Like people who had run out of places to run, they dug trenches, reinforced walls, learned to fight. Koi taught boys to shoot. Mara taught women to hold a knife steady. Klima loaded shells. The town changed. So did they. But the worst wasn't done. It was only on its way. Dusk crept over Hollow Bend like a warning. The air felt heavy, as if the town itself was holding its breath. Koi stood on the bluff overlooking the east trail. The land stretched long and empty, but he knew emptiness didn't mean safety. It meant something was coming. He rode back to the shack and said only one word, "Company!" Mara was already pulling on her boots. Klima checked the shells in the rifle. The wind had a cold bite, even though summer was near, and Koi knew weather like that meant trouble. By midday, the whole town was preparing. The blacksmith rigged tripwires. Hester, the widow with one good eye, climbed onto the roof of the feed store with a shotgun. Children were kept inside. Men stood in doorways with rifles held tight. Then the riders appeared, 7 of them. They came in a line, dressed in black coats that didn't flap in the wind. Their horses were strong, too strong to be drifters. Each rider wore an iron pin on their chest, a red eye. Forged metal, a mark no decent soul forgot. Mara froze when she saw it. "Red, watch," she said. "Redding's private hounds." Koi rested his hand on the rifle. Then they die like men. They didn't ride fast. They didn't yell. They moved like they were used to folks running or begging. Hollow Bend did neither. At the edge of town, they fanned out. One rider stepped forward, a man with pale eyes and a voice like cold gravel. "We want the girl," he called. "She belongs to Reading." "No one here belongs to him," Koi answered. The man grinned. "Then you die with her." The first shot came from the riders. It cracked through the trading post sign. The second shattered a window. The air exploded with gunfire. Dust leapt from the ground in sharp bursts. Koi fired from the feed store, dropping one rider clean off his horse. Mara and Klima moved through the side alleys like shadows, blades bright and fast. The barkeep shot from behind a barrel. Hester fired from the rooftop with a steady hand. Hollow Bend fought not like settlers, but like people who had decided enough was enough. One rider fell near the pump, blood darkening the dirt. Another crashed into Mrs. Greavy's porch. A third tried to run, but Klima was waiting. Her knife found him before he could raise his gun. Koi took a bullet through his shoulder, but stayed standing. He gritted his teeth, steadied his aim, and dropped another man from his saddle. Then everything went still. The last rider wasn't like the others. He dismounted, slow. His coat brushed the dust, his gray hair pulled back tight, his gloves black as coal. He didn't speak at first, just looked at Mara. "Reading," she whispered. He studied her like she was a book he had written himself. "I come when something needs ending," he said. "You ended me years ago," Mara answered. He smiled thin. "Then what are you now?" Mara didn't look away. "Justice, without a badge, without a god." Reading drew a thin, dueling pistol. He aimed smooth and fast. But Mara was faster. She ducked the shot, rolled across the ground, and came up behind him. Her knife drove deep between his shoulders. He staggered, turned, blood filling his mouth. "You're just a girl," he rasped. "I was," she said. She slit his throat. Silence fell over the street. Not relief. Something heavier. Something final. Koi wiped blood from his face and walked to her. She knelt in the dust, hands shaking for the first time since he met her. He rested a hand on her shoulder. "You done?" he asked. She nodded. That night, they buried the bodies behind the ridge. No crosses, no prayers, just stones piled high. Mara didn't speak. Koi didn't push. They burned Redding's coat, watched it curl into ash. When the fire died, they just stood there, wind tugging at their clothes, the night deep around them, Hollow Bend quiet behind them. "Will trouble come again?" Koi asked. Mara looked out across the dark hills for a long time. "If it does," she said, "it'll find me ready." "You ain't the girl they sent," Koi said. "No," she answered softly. "I'm the one who came back." He took her hand, not from romance, from understanding, from respect, from survival. Hollow Bend rebuilt slow, people planted again, repaired walls, dug new wells. Clemma stayed in the extra room Koi built. The scarred woman healed. Kids laughed again on the street. Mara stitched clothes, mended wounds, taught others how to hold a knife steady. Koi wore no badge, but the whole town walked straighter, knowing he was there. Months later, when the garden finally grew tall and the sun warmed the earth again, Koi found Mara outside at dusk. She stood in the field, turning the soil with her hands, her braid brushing her back. He stepped beside her. "You think we deserve peace?" he asked. Mara didn't look up right away. She touched the ground lightly, almost gentle. "I think we earned a place to rest," she said. Koi nodded and watched the fading sun paint her face. And for the first time since Anna's burial, he felt something warm inside him that wasn't grief. Maybe not love, but something shaped like hope. That night, they sat outside their shack, the wind soft, the sky wide, hollow bend, quiet. Two people who should have been broken. Two people who weren't. And everything ahead of them waiting to be lived.